Hello everyone, and welcome to the Tamagotchi video. This time I'm going to be reviewing the Tamagotchi Connection remasters, also known as the Tamagotchi Connection version 3 re-releases, or the 20th anniversary Tamagotchi Connections. So after running these for about a week since my last video on them, which was the unboxing, I've formulated more of an opinion than just my first impressions. So first of all, I'm still a pretty big fan of the fact that these even exist in the first place, so just I guess a spoiler warning, I love these, so take that into account, but I do have some negative thoughts about them. You can see that I have managed to have Maskachi on both of them. I think I'm cursed with the Maskachi just because it's always the one that I get, or at least it's the one that I've had the most often on my Tamagotchi connections as an adult. Funnily enough, I never actually had Maskachi on them when I ran them as a kid. I had basically everything else except for Maskachi, but in my adult life I am cursed to be running with the Maskachi. So overall these feel really nice. They feel definitely like a better re-release than we saw for the Tamagotchi original re-releases. By that I mean it's got everything that the original had that was good, but they've removed Tamatown, which I guess is kind of, it's not really a negative because Tamatown, the website, is no longer available, and if Bandai created a new version of Tamatown just for the purpose of the Tamagotchi Connection anniversaries, in 10 or so years that same problem will arise where there's no Tamatown, and of course that means less functionality on these. So in terms of these over the original, I would recommend these because they are more complete. They don't have a feature or functionality that's no longer available because the Tamatown website is no longer available. So that's something that is but also isn't a negative because I loved Tamatown as a kid and I have a lot of nostalgia from going on to Tamatown. I thought it was a really cool idea, but of course it's not available on these. In general, it keeps a lot of the features and functionality and sprites, which is something I really love about these. They don't try to be anything more. If they're not too overwhelming, like the Digimon version 20th is an anniversary remaster of the original in a similar way that this one is. Oh, Maskachi needs to go to the toilet. There's my other one. Nope, I missed it. Oop, just throw that there. But yeah, so it is an anniversary edition like the Digimon 20th, but it's not as much of a step up. It's more like a sidestep, but in a good way, if that makes sense. The Digital Monster X and the Digital Monster version 20th, while I think they're great, and the DM20 especially, it's a great entry point into Digimon Virtual Pets, I find that it can be a little bit overwhelming in terms of all the additional functionalities, like the ability to run 2 Digimon at once. I'm not actually a big fan of, and that's one of the main drawing points for the DM20. On this, you can still just run the one Tamagotchi at once, and what do you want? Oh, it's the salesman that comes by every so often, which it's I guess the thing. I kind of like the random animations and random events that happen. Probably one of my most favourite things from the Tamagotchi connections are the random animations that happen throughout the day. It makes them feel more alive, I guess is a word. They feel more realistic, they feel more like actual things. They're not just walking back and forth like you would see on the original Tamagotchis or the Tamagotchi re-releases. They don't just walk back and forward, they do things like watch TV or brush their teeth or have baths. Just kind of real things, and I really liked that as a kid as well, that I would be brushing my teeth before bed and I'd look at my Tamagotchi, and my Tamagotchi was also brushing their teeth before bed or having a bath, and I always thought that was really cute. And they've kept it, of course, because again, while I'm not calling it a straight up re-release because it does have additional features and functionality, it's still got at its core everything that the version 3 had, with just a few additional things, and of course the removal of the Tamatown. So, big fan of that. Do love it. Of course, the Tamatown functionality and the passwords have been replaced by passwords that you get from packaging for the Tamagotchi Connection, so that's fine. I'm glad that they put something in its place, so at least it feels like I'm not missing out on anything, so that's good. But I do have a few negatives, but they are very, very small negatives. So first up, I feel like this is one that a lot of people are going to have, and it's something that's actually they've removed from the original Tamagotchi Connection. I don't think it was in the Japanese releases, but it was in the English releases, which is more or less what this is based on. It's based more heavily on the Tamagotchi Connection English releases than the Japanese Akai and Keitai, which was the same thing but the Japanese version. And that is the fact that there's no pause functionality. So you can go to the clock and you can change it to set time, but the originals actually had a pause functionality where you press A and B and your character would just sort of be idle on the screen and it would say pause. And that would be an indefinite pause. It's like the fridge functionality on a lot of the modern Digimon virtual pets. And that was really great because sometimes if I was having a busy day at school, because I was in school when I had these original ones, I could just pause it. But there's no pause, which is kind of a bummer for me because I do like that. Of course, it doesn't age when it's paused. That would make sense that it doesn't. But other than that, it was a great feature and functionality, and I really wish that they kept it on these ones because it feels a little more okay than just putting it on the set feature. And yeah, it was an actual built-in pause. So that's a shame that that's removed. Another negative is something that is more of a future concern, and it's a similar feature, or I guess not really a feature, but similar concern that I have about the Tamagotchi re-releases, and that's the paint. I'm worried about it chipping off. You can actually feel the paint. It's not like an imprint. It's like it's just painted on. I worry that after time these are just going to kind of lose their paint, so I have to put it in a nice pouch and look after it a little bit more. Not necessarily a bad thing, just something that I've noticed, and it just does feel the same quality as those re-releases, which have so-so paint quality. Another thing is the keychain. I don't really like this kind of keychain. It kind of falls off too easily, and I don't know, I just don't, it looks kind of boring. I prefer the clip keychains or the type of keychain which had like a charm that we had on the Tamagotchi Connections versions 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 in Australia, which were just various like nice charms. Just something that looks a little bit nicer than just this type of keychain. Of course you can just take it off and put a different one on, that there's nothing stopping you. But I wish the stock standard chain was a little bit nicer than this one. But again, it's kind of like a tiny negative because there's literally nothing stopping you replacing it. Another thing is the clock is still as slow as it was on the original Tamagotchi Connection. I always kind of excuse the speed of which the clock slides back and forth to be just like, oh, it's just, you know, it's old technology, it's slow. The processing power is enough to have a clock that is faster than that. But it just feels still a little bit slow to slide back and forth. I know it's nothing in compared to the original vintages, which are just very slow. Like, you may as well start boiling yourself a cup of tea because it takes ages with the vintages. So it could be worse, but it's just something that I noticed. But overall, these are pretty great remasters of the original. Except for the lack of the pause functionality, it's definitely not a downgrade from them. In fact, because the original Tamagotchi Connections are so expensive, I would 100% recommend getting one of these over getting an original. They are, of course, still $70 Australian from retail, so you can still probably buy some connections from the old model at kind of almost the same price, which is kind of annoying, but it's also not completely uncommon for the original connections to be above $100 in price on Facebook Marketplace, Gumtree and eBay. So I would definitely still recommend getting the re-releases, except that the retail price for Australia is really kind of gross. I'm glad that they kept Bump. I don't know why. Everyone else seems to not like Bump. I like it. I'm not good at it. Maybe the reason I was so good at it as a kid was because my Tamagotchi was always the heaviest it could be, and in fact I'm pretty sure both my Tamagotchis are 99 pounds, or I can't remember, did they use grams or pounds on this? I think it might be pounds. No, it's grams. I'm a fake fan, I'm wrong, but yeah, my Tamagotchis are fat because I was sick yesterday and I didn't want to play games with it, and also lazy. But at least they kept the weight functionality. In the modern ones, they've removed it since, but they've kept it for the Tamagotchi Connection, but likely because the Bump game relies pretty heavily on your character being heavy. So I used to play this when I was walking home from school as a kid. So yeah, I've got a lot of nostalgia for the Bump game, and also you could see the other characters that were available on the Tamagotchi, so that was kind of cool. And then I'd get the excitement if I ever got one of those characters that I only ever saw through playing Bump. But yeah, I don't know why the Bump game is my favourite. It's probably out of pure nostalgia, like it was just the one that I happened to play a lot as a kid, and now of course playing it as an adult scratches that little endorphin nostalgia serotonin blip in my brain. Something else I like, which of course is the same as the original, is the fact that all of the games are, like, you get them as your character gets older, so it feels like you're unlocking things. I'm still terrible at them, and I always forget that, see, I also tend to run the Tamagotchi Nano Tamagotchis and those releases, and they use C as cancel in the game, so they only use A and B as left and right, so I've got to like reprogram my brain for that. Oh, I was really bad at this game as a kid. And apparently I'm also really bad at it now, but hey, I've got 5 gotchi points, so I'll try not to spend that all in one place. Was this a button mashing one? I remember it being on there, but I don't remember how to play it. It was a button. Oh, I love button mashing games. Why didn't I play this one more? There must be some reason why. Okay, that's right. I'm terrible at it. It's button mashing, but you have to pace yourself, or else you fall over. From memory, there's a similar one on the Akai, which is the Japanese version with some different characters, and also the pixels are red and really hard to see. It's probably the worst of the Tamagotchi connections in my opinion. It has that sort of game, but instead of sprinting you're swimming, and it's probably the only game that I'm good at. Okay, I'm also bad at that game. I don't know why. Maybe, okay, now we've worked out why Bump was the one that was my favourite, is because I'm absolutely shocking at all of them. I think Get is probably the only one that I'm able to get perfect on, but that's only if I remember how the controls work, because I played this so much and then I went back to my Nano, and I actually did this in one of my videos, which is coming out next week I think. I was playing the Get game on the Nano and I pressed C instead of B to move, and it cancelled out of it because it does on the Nanos. So yeah, but that's just a me thing. That's not a positive or a negative or whatever. That's just kind of a thing that's a weird thing that I do. But in any case, those are my thoughts about the Tamagotchi Connection. If I'm going to give it a score out of 10 for ease of use and enjoyment, enjoyment's like I want to say like an 8. And so yeah, enjoyment's an 8 and ease of use is probably a 10. I'm bad at the games, but that's just a me thing. I feel like they are incredibly easy to run. Yes, there's no pause functionality, which is a shame, but yeah, they're still pretty easy. I'm still trying to get the hang of remembering when to discipline, like when to time out and when to praise. So I think if it cries for no reason and it's just sort of moving around the screen as normal and the hearts are full, it's timeout. But if it's like facing away from you and crying, then it's praise. I never got the hang of that as a kid. I could never remember which one to do, but I think that way is correct. But I'm always second guessing, and I always look it up, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that's right, and then I forget completely. So, but yeah, that's a me thing. Otherwise, ease of use is definitely a 10. Enjoyment, yeah, it's an 8. Like, I really do enjoy them, but a lot of that is nostalgia. I would absolutely recommend these to anyone who maybe hasn't had a Tamagotchi before. I think they're a great entry point. They're not too complicated, and they don't have as many problems as the re-releases. So that's basically it. Oh, in terms of battery life, these are still running after just over a week. I have heard that the packed-in batteries last about a week, so I guess mine are probably going to run out soonish. Maybe, I don't know, I've seen other people say that. But that is just the pack-in batteries, not batteries that you buy. The pack-in batteries are always a little bit weaker and a little bit cheaper than the ones that you buy anyway. But that's just what I've heard. If you're wondering where to pick these up, I'm in Australia, and this video is not sponsored by anyone, but I got mine from the Gamesman. But EB Games Australia have them. Amazon have them. In America, I'm pretty sure it's like Amazon, GameStop, and I think Best Buy, but I'm not American. I only know the Australian sellers. I'm just going by what I've seen and heard. But in any case, that's it for this video. Do I recommend them? Absolutely, especially if you've never had any experience with Tamagotchi before, and especially if you have had experience with the Tamagotchi connections, because they're a nice little trip into nostalgia town and scratch that nice little bit in your brain. Anyway, that's all I basically have to say for this video. I might do more videos in the future about them because, hey, I just really like talking about them. But in any case, let me know your thoughts, comments, questions, etc., in the comments section below. Like this video for Bandai doing something that's not just the Tamagotchi re-releases and actually remastering the connections. Subscribe if you haven't already. And if you have subscribed, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your enemies. And of course, I'll see you next video. Bye!